things I like to point out is you will have to observe Ed Garland is currently representing one of the attorneys representing T.I. And T.I. was charged with possessing and purchasing machine guns, and he's an established convicted felon. One of my good friends, Dwight Thomas, who's a black attorney, is also one of the counsel for T.I. Now, what they did is they, when the government came out with the allegations, the first thing they did was have a press conference in front of the federal courthouse. But in a deeper fashion, you have to look at that and say, okay, well, what's more serious allegation? You have T.I., who's an established convicted felon purchasing machine guns with silencers, which in my mind indicates an imminent threat if you have silencers. But he was granted bond. Okay? In Dr. York's case, you have a person with allegations of sexual conduct, a lot of which is outside statute of limitations. But the more important things about the allegation with the children that was not brought up in the beginning was the number of children that said nothing happened. See, the interesting thing about this case, you have a group of children that said so-and-so happened. But you have another group of children that said it didn't happen to me, even though these other children said it happened to me, and it didn't happen to them either. So of the actual indicted children that were in the indictment, we present about the same number of witnesses as the government did to say nothing happened to me and nothing happened to them. The government presented witnesses that said, okay, something happened to me and I saw something happen to them. So really you had virtually of the people relative to the indictment that period of time, you had a virtual split in terms of the people that were saying something happened. And what would have been important at that time is that they had 6 of the individuals that were children that were alleged to have been molested taken by defects. And they were questioned and they denied any sex acts, improper sexual activity had taken place, period. That would have been very important at the time of the bond hearing. To say, while there's I guess a media type conviction of Dr. York that these are reprehensible acts, the evidence would have shown that there were other children on Tamaray when the government raided the land, that there were absolutely no allegations whatsoever, maybe 50 to 60 children or however many. Plus there were 6 actual children at that time in DFAC's custody that were saying nothing happened to me and nothing happened to them. Those would be grounds in which you should grant a bond, in my opinion, because the purpose of a bond is not to punish before conviction. Now, going back to the T.I. example, a person that's convicted felon that's purchasing machine guns with silencers gets a bond. But the question you have to ask is, who would American society consider more of a threat to the fabric? A person that's independent and trying to push independence for blacks, or a person that's assisting in the destruction of black imagery? And that may be the answer to why there's a bond grant. But that just shows the difference. His defense team, though, they were active. Dwight Thomas, Steve Sadal, so forth, were active in addressing the issue immediately and said our client will be vindicated on all charges. That didn't happen in Dr. York's case. Okay? In the beginning. And that was very critical.
It was May 16th. I was at school on my last period. And I was called. It was like an hour before it was time to leave school. And I was called to go to the counseling office. And I went to the counseling office, and there was a room, and there was a few people, like three people inside the room. They wanted to talk to me. I didn't know what it was about. And I went in the room, and they told me, this is between me, and this is between them and between me, not anybody else. And don't tell my mother and anybody else. It's just between us. And they was asking me questions about Dr. York, and I was telling them, no, it didn't happen. And then one of the females told me they would have a paper coming to me in regards if I had, said anything to help the situation. or to tell them, what happened or whatever, what they think will happen. And I told them it didn't happen, but they kept forcing me, saying that, if I don't say this, then they probably put me in jail, or they'll come a whole bunch of papers and stuff like that. And so I sat and they had me in the room for a minute, and I wanted to leave. So I sat and told them what they wanted to hear, because I was very afraid of the part when the lady was telling me about going to jail and stuff. So I told them what they wanted to hear, and after all of that was done, they came and they was telling me how, because it was later on, it was getting a little late, and I missed my bus, and how they was going to drop me off, but they couldn't do that. So they're saying that they was going to drop me off somewhere close to my house. I came home and I told my mother. They put fear in me, and I told them what they wanted to hear. So, I was afraid, and I wanted to hurry and get out of there. And the next day I felt bad about it, and I called Miss Franklin, and I told her it was a conspiracy, and none of this happened. And I felt bad, and I told her that he didn't deserve none of this, because Dr. Malachi is a good person, and he didn't do anything to any, nothing happened to anybody or anything like that.
Well, it was just the whole situation with with Malachi York case, and everything. He said those things are not true. My mother forced me into saying those things. I said, oh really? And he said yes, and he said I'm scared because I don't know what to do, and she forced me into saying these things. It's not true. And he asked me what should he do. I said, well, basically what you should do is you should do what's right. Tell the truth. Because if you don't tell the truth, then you're doing, it's probably eating you inside. That's why it's bothering you so much. So, he said, so what should I do? I said, well, it's on you. He said, well, do you think I should, he said, what should, he said something like, should I write it on a piece of paper, or what should I do? I said, well, it's up to you what you want to do. You should, probably just express yourself. If you feel like you have to write it down, express yourself and do what you need to, because he's my little brother, and it's not, when it comes to family, you would never expect for your family to make up something like that, So knowing that Malachi York got 135 years of something that he never done to anyone, he's accused with so much from different people, and I know my brother told me personally that these things never happened to him, but yet he still stick with the story that he was forced to say by his mother, that he was molested, which wasn't true, and we are still here for David, we're his family.